Ladies, if you've ever thought, how the hell do I get rid of this mommy pooch, this little pouch underneath my belly button? Why is it there even though I do all of the right things? Well, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we are going to give you 5 ways to a flatter tummy, and some of them might be surprising. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind and tummy. Tone the tum. It's such a thing. Why can't I get rid of this one area?
I know.
People will pinch and poke and do all the things, especially the moms.
I know.
It makes me sad, to be honest with you. But for those of you who want to listen to that part of our content, check out the show notes below to check out the timestamps, and you can fast forward through our banter and bullshit. Also, if you could, please give us a 5-star rating and review. If you like this podcast, please give us a follow on anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're still running our 3 winners for a year-long subscription to the Mindset of Movement app for a 5-star rating and review, and we have one.
Yay.
We have one. Yay. So, anywho, I haven't talked about this yet, but I'm ready to talk about it.
Okay.
So, for our listeners, I said last shows I was going through it. My dad has stage 4 lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And up until the last 2 weeks, he's been relatively okay.
Yes.
I'd say about a month ago. About a month ago, he found a lump in his neck. And they being his oncology team, supposedly checked it, and they said it was not cancerous. They've also said many times that the cancer has not spread. They said many times the cancer has cleared other veins and arteries in his body until he ended up in the ER and had high heart rate, was 130, resting heart rate, body completely swollen. And he ended up in the hospital for 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
His tumor has spread, and it is crowding his superior vena cava, which is one of the veins, one of the main veins in your body that supplies blood to your heart and extremities. He also has SAIHD, I want to think it's called, where the tumor itself is giving off a hormone. It's an antidiuretic hormone that then causes his kidneys to hold on to too much water. Therefore, his sodium levels were 120, which is really bad. So he was under seizure risk. And lastly, apparently, based on his discharge papers, my father's cancer has spread to his neck.
What?
So he is going through radiation. We were in and out of the hospital. I stayed at the hospital, was there every single day except for one day. I shouldn't say that. I didn't go one day. Just trying to make him comfortable and trying to control what we can control, which I think for a lot of people listening to this, whatever it is that you're going through in your life, that's difficult. Number one, we have to look at what can we control in that period of life. And number two, we had to look at too, like, what am I learning from this? What am I getting from this? Right. I had time with my dad I wouldn't normally have. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about it today. Like, there's a lot of spiritual things in my mind that help me feel at peace. Being able to be able to be selfless, and I'd rather him not suffer and I'll take the suffering, right? Of missing him if something happens to him. I think it's important for people to realize, like, you go through these times. I mean, and for me, I've talked about my dog potentially having me put down. I've talked about this now. You can very much fall into a hole of, why is this happening to me all at once? Why And I know that for me, spiritually, I know that it's because I can handle it and that I'm going to be okay, and focusing on, again, what I can control. I won't lie to you guys. Like, this weekend, I went out with friends and probably overconsumed alcohol. And that was interesting because I very much am trying to be, the best version of myself. For my business, for this podcast, for everything. And it just kind of, coming back to like my faith and what I believe in, it put that alcohol in front of, my own thoughts and making it be the thing that was going to take care of me. Right. When I don't need it and I can take care of myself. So just total transparency. I'm not like sitting here like a fucking superhero. Like I needed time to numb out a little bit. So I want you to know we're also fucking human, So he's home now. Mark and I were able to buy him a nice adjustable bed, which he loves. He called me today to tell me about the massager in it.
Oh, damn.
I know. I was like, do I need one of these beds?
I don't know. Like, do I want to elevate my sexual intercaptors?
Yeah. So I didn't talk a lot about it on my professional. I didn't talk about it at all on my professional page, but I forget that a lot of people follow me on Facebook and my personal Facebook is connected to my Facebook page. So I think the people who were able to reach out, obviously our clients, our coaches, the coaches were able to pick up for where I needed to take some space. And we're not out of the woods. Amanda and I have had to have hard conversations about the future and, just making sure that this company still is okay when I need to bow out, So for anyone going through this, I understand it's hard, but you can still focus on yourself and what you need. Some days that was a 4-hour fucking nap. I've not slept more this week than I do when I'm like sick. Or whatever that looks like. I worked out my 4 days. I walked every day. So that was just my time. So that's it.
I think it was an interesting point for you individually because the things you've been working on, like for your own therapy and whatnot, and just you as an individual, like you really had to let that control factor go and trust that you have the systems in place that you've worked hard to do. Right. So like you had to be able to say, okay, one, have a hard conversation, you and I, of like, these are the systems in place that we have. Should I need to step away? And when Christina and I say her stepping away, it's more so she can take care of herself. And it's not so of like, okay, I'm done with business. I'm done with work. I'm stepping out of life. She needs to be able, and this is for anybody listening, you need to be able to step away and take care of yourself, because if, like she's told us, if you're not taking care of yourself, then everything else will not be taken care of.
Right.
And so her, in my opinion, at that time, if and when it does come, is not the priority is not the business. The priority is her, because the business is based off of her knowledge and whatnot, but she has created the business in a way that it runs with her in the background. That's been her goal. And so I think it was good for you to recognize, like, okay, I've built it to this point now, right? Where
That's
you can reflect back and be like, man, it was just me. And I was the one like doing this and creating this, but now I've got it in a place where I've got coaches that I trust and they've got touch points between each other. And now if I need to take care of myself, I can do that without worrying about this whole place falling apart. Because a lot of businesses don't run like that. If one person's not there, they're fucked.
Yeah.
And so I think it was good for you to be able to see. I mean, granted, the circumstances of why are not good, but it was good for you to be able to like see that for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it was good for you to be able to say, okay, this is how I can lean on other people to support me. I don't need to keep doing all of this. And it's not like you were doing like a shit ton, you've definitely gotten better about like allocating time and boundaries and why you have coaches, for your program.
Yeah.
So I think it was good for you to be able to see like, okay, like I've got it. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. And that just goes back to that idea of like, what are you learning from this?
Yes.
What are you supposed to learn from this? And I truly believe that every single thing we go through, every single thing is an ability to find positives. And this is coming from someone who is losing her father to cancer.
Right.
Like I can find the positives in this because I choose not to get stuck, whether it's this or anything else in my life, get stuck in the,
why me, poor me,
negative spiral, because it doesn't serve me. right?
Yeah.
I already have enough pain. I don't need more,
Right.
So just for you guys listening, like even when my husband, I think I talked about this, ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks when we were supposed to be in Thailand. Prior to that, I kept saying how this trip to Thailand was time alone because we hadn't had time alone together because
Mhm.
I, at the time, was traveling a lot for work and stuff. And we ended up getting our time together, very intimate time together because he was in the hospital for also 10 days.
Yeah.
And so, and people showed up for us and even my company at the time I worked for showed up for us and it was good. Plus it was kind of, hindsight's 2020 things happened in Thailand with the group that went that I know for me, I would not be okay with.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, it's as much as you can, guys, like focus on the positives. I think it was Mr. Rogers that said, always look for the helpers in hard times. Not only look for the helpers, but like look for the lessons
Yeah.
because it makes life a lot easier.
Well, and I'm proud of you too because this is one of those traits that we often see with clients is that they start to almost shut themselves down and dive more into work, more into like controlling things around the house. How can I clean? How can I avoid like this feeling of discomfort? Whereas you turn more towards how can I spend this time with my dad?
Right.
And like,
And feel.
yeah, and feel like it's an uncomfortable feeling. Of course, no one wants to feel any of this that you are.
Mhm.
But instead of like diving into business and trying to figure out all these little things that you could do, it was like, no, I think I'm just going to take a step back and go hang out with my dad.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people could resonate with because, I mean, 9 times out of 10, all of the listeners that we have, someone's had something similar, if not,
Right.
will have something similar to this of remembering like what is more valuable than that. Like your kitchen being clean doesn't matter right now. Like time with your dad, will matter.
Yeah.
Or your mom or whomever it is that, is equivalent to Christina's relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't have, like, losing my dad obviously will be hard,
Oh, yeah.
but I have no regrets in my relationship with him.
No, y'all have had a nice one.
Yeah. And for those of you listening who may not have that, having that opportunity now before something like this happens to, if healthy, y'all don't need to rekindle any relationships that are unhealthy. Sometimes the regret is in not setting the boundary in the relationship.
Right.
So like know that that's okay too. But if it's not, and you don't want to be put in the position where it can be taken away from you. And then you're like, oh no, I didn't spend enough time, or I didn't tell him this, or da da da, So if it's healthy, this is an opportunity and a reminder to call your parent, tell them you love them, see how they're doing, whatever that looks like, because they may not be there. So that's that.
Good. I'm glad you shared. Thank you for sharing, Christina.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah. My heart hurts.
I'm sure.
I was weirdly thinking about this concept. I was listening to the School of Greatness today. They were talking about abundance, which I'm all about that. I'm really big into like what you believe, you achieve. Right. It was such a good fucking podcast in so many ways. Like not just with my dad, but with business, with myself. Like he had said, what are your limited belief systems? What are the competing belief systems you have in your head? That's one I haven't looked at for myself. What is my self-sabotage? So everything we talked about, right? But he was, this guy is a Kabbalah. Is that what it's called? Religion?
Oh, yeah. Kabbalah. Kabbalah. Let's Google it.
Okay.
Kabbalah is not a standalone religion, but a mystical and esoteric interpretation of Jewish teachings.
Oh,
interesting.
Also, we need to talk about Nobody Wants This. Speaking of Jewish teachings.
Cute.
Huh?
That was a super cute series.
Yeah. I watched it all Friday night. But he was talking about your soul and how, like, for those people who he was talking about, trigger warning, people who take their lives, how they will in their next life get right back to that point of them not pushing through this discomfort and pain. And then it got me thinking in my own little crazy brain. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just my dad's soul's time to go like share the love he gave me with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started bawling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it was just so good. You guys should listen. I'll link it. School of Greatness. Is it Kabbalic?
It's
Kabbalion?
Kabbalah.
But you're like a Christian. I guess it's Christianity. What are you, Kabbalion? Kabbalic? No.
Well, it's more of like spiritual.
Yeah. No, I'm very spiritual.
Or the deeper spiritual meanings behind the Torah and the nature of God, universe, and soul.
See, but I believe in Jesus. So
you can create your own religion, Christina.
I do in my head.
Yeah. It's interesting because my massage gal and I were talking about that today because she's more spiritual too. I'm more spiritual. And so we were talking about like, how do you talk to kids about that? Because she's like, I don't know. Yeah. Because I saw my cousins yesterday with their kids. And I guess they take them to like a church group just to like interact and whatnot. And they were teaching the 4-year-old about like Jesus dying and coming back. And so for his brain, he's like, how to like, yeah. Like, wait, what? Like, and so then he's on this thing right now of like grandparents, because on that side, they only have like one grandpa really. And so there's no grandmas. And so he's like trying to figure out like, well, can my grandmas come back to life?
Oh,
I know. And so my cousin's wife is like, well, like, maybe kind of like, I don't like, how do you really communicate that? And so it was, and then the massage therapist and I were talking of like, how do you communicate other religions to your children as they grow up and start being interested and, you know, and kind of explain like, well, some religions like go by this book, but some people interpret that book differently. But you know, like where the kid can be like, wait, what?
Yeah. No, like I would study theology. I think I'm fascinated by it.
Yes.
I read Eckhart Tolle's book. I don't remember which one it was, but it talks about like how all of these characters in different religions all kind of encompass the same values, morals, and like persona. And it's really what they were talking about in that podcast, you know? So
one of the most interesting
spiritual
classes I ever took was on religion.
World religions.
And then one of the other more interesting classes that I took at NAU was on Islam. And it was one of the hardest classes I ever did. And you know, because like sometimes you sign up for a class in college, you're like, like it's an elective, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Buried Cities and Lost Tribes. I had to take it 3 times.
Yeah. See? And you're like, this is, and then I took it, I was like, oh my God, this is so, and the way he did the test, like it was like question, and then you had to write like short form paragraph. Yeah. Not like multiple choice. I mean,
that's torture on him too.
Yeah.
Like,
it was one of the hardest classes, but I learned so much from it. And I appreciated his teaching as a professor that I ended up doing like Islam part 2 or whatever, you know, the second. I know. So I was like, okay, like, am I the dummy or what?
Just no, I only had to take Buried Cities and Lost Tribes over because I was working full time in college and slept through my final.
Oh, damn. That sucks.
Then the second time I like started taking it, and then I was like, I can't do this right now. So I cut it. And literally my last semester, I'm like, I've got to pass this class. Damn it. And I know everything about fucking Mount Vesuvius and, you know, what is it? Petra and what the fuck? Anyway, Buried Cities.
Yeah. Another buried city.
Speaking of buried cities,
let's talk about buried abs.
Buried abs. So you guys probably like, you guys put the word belly or tummy, flat tummy in this podcast title. Who are they? We're just clickbait, baby.
Yeah,
just clickbait.
We are working on our clickbait, to be fully transparent.
Yes, because we just want to get our message to as many people as we can. And sometimes you just gotta be clickbaity bitches. So we have no shame in that. But, you know, for postpartum women, for perimenopausal women, this belly fat thing can be such a struggle. And for some women, they just hold more fat in their midsections. You know, you have that kind of apple-shaped body where we have more fat around our bellies, thighs, butts. For me, I have the longest torso in America, so I
You do have a
don't
very
have a
long
lot of belly fat. Reason being is because I have a lot of area to store fat here. And also I follow what we're going to talk about today.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's why we did it. But let's talk about how people gain fat, right?
Okay.
I interrupt this episode to bring you the Mindset of Matter Black Friday specials that you will absolutely want to take advantage of. For the first time ever in my program, I'm offering $500 off of the one-to-one Mindset Method program. This is the program that Amanda and I talk about. Whenever we're talking about clients we've done one-to-one coaching with. This includes a weekly call with your coach, access to the Mindset Method curriculum, access to customizable exercise and nutrition coaching based on everything we talk about, and so much more. And for the first time ever, we are offering $500 off with a paid in full purchase. Number two, we now have a new group coaching program, the Mindset Method Movement. And for the first time, we are offering 1 month free with a 3-month commitment. So for 3 months, you get 4 months instead, or 3 months free with a 12-month commitment. So for the price of 12 months, you get 15 months instead. This includes access to the Mindset Method curriculum and access to 2 group coaching calls with me every single week so that you can process what you're learning. You also get access to the Mindset Method Movement community forum, and we will have the ability to add on customized nutrition and exercise coaching at a discounted rate. So check out the show notes below for the links to any of those programs. And just as a reminder, giving the gift of health and wellness is one of the greatest gifts you can give to someone. So if you think someone could benefit from these amazing programs, please take advantage of this throughout the month of November. Now, back to the show. For people who are eating more energy, so food, than they're burning on a daily basis. Now, again, burning your calories is not what your Apple Watch says. It's based on a variety of different factors, 4 factors to
Or
be
the
exact.
treadmill or the Stairmaster. Sorry, I
Correct.
wanted because
Any sort of machine outside of yourself is false.
Yes.
Unless you're doing some sort of electromagnetic laboratory shit.
Yes.
So we look at your age, height, weight, the amount of movement you have. If we have the technology, we can also look at your lean body mass versus fat mass and get a rough estimate of your total daily energy expenditure. So for the two of us, ours is because we are leaner humans. We have our muscle in our bodies is anywhere from, I'd say 23 to 2,600. Did you say that's right?
For maintenance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we were to eat, 3,000 calories a day, that would put us at a surplus, right? The reason what happens though, especially when people go into like a surplus, a lean bulk, they actually prioritize proteins, right? They have higher protein. They obviously have higher fiber foods, healthy fats. But when we just eat in an excessive amount above our total daily energy expenditure, our body won't have to use that energy, right? Because we already had eaten enough plus some for the energy that we expended in that day. So then it has to store it, and it can get stored into our fat tissues. Now, again, if you're someone who has more muscle, which we'll talk about, muscle becomes wonderful storage for like glucose, right? But for most people, they're under muscled, they eat over their total daily energy expenditure, and it gets stored as fat. Now you'll look at men versus women as we get older, right? Men have that beer belly where women usually hold fat in their thighs and around their reproductive organs. That is by design. Okay. Our body is smart enough to say, this is what I need to protect during this time. And that's why we see as we age and our estrogen and our hormones change, that shift from reproductive organs, booty, hips to belly, right? So a little bit higher up. Why that happens? Because now the body is saying, I don't need to protect that area anymore. That's not exactly how it works, but I'm trying to make this simple. I don't need to protect my reproductive organs. I'm not going to use them. So it shifts up into that menopause belly, as they call it. So that's my experience. Chat about what would you say to the postpartum mommy, and kind of, because her experience isn't necessarily like a surplus of food.
No, her experience could be an underconsumption of food where her
Mhm.
body's looking for nutrients to restore her body
Oh,
from yeah, well, think about, I mean, how much energy pregnancy, labor, and then recovery is. And
and
even though it's
breastfeeding.
yeah, and breastfeeding. So it's looking for energy replenishment. Then we tend to not energy replenish because we're hoping for weight loss. But I like to equate it where the body goes, okay, like, thank God you fed me. I'm going to store this until
Mhm.
so that way I have it later when you're not feeding me enough.
Mhm.
A lot of the time too is I'll see like women are trying to do like these 21-day challenges or like these like ab circuit workouts to get their belly back or whatever marketing scheme it is. Um, and what they're actually not doing is engaging their abdominals. They're just using
Mhm.
their hip flexors or they're breathing improperly. So they're working on it, but they're actually exacerbating the problem too,
Mhm.
instead of
You
correcting it.
you bring up a good point of even just like, uh, DR, or like you
Mhm.
talk about the upper ab grippers, and but excuse me, specifically postpartum, the structure of your abdomen can change.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's supposed this is one thing that grinds my gears, is that people will be like, "I'm trying to avoid DR." And so DR, when we're saying that, is diastasis recti, and basically
Mhm.
what it is a separation of your abs to make room for baby. It is completely normal, it is unavoidable, and 100% of women who go through pregnancy will have it.
Mm,
And so, yeah, because like, think about it, like, your belly's growing, there's no way to avoid it.
right.
Now, when we come out of pregnancy and we're in that postpartum period, you can say, like, some people will say, "Oh, I have a two-finger width," or "I have this and that." And it's more so not so much about the width, but about the tension that your belly can create. So, for example, I may have like a four-finger width apart from my abs, but Christina maybe has a two, which so you could say objectively or based on numbers, hers is better, but I may
Mhm.
be able to create tension where she's not. So therefore
Mm,
mine's better. And there's different places where this DR can happen as well. It's not always just in the same spot. There's like an upper and a lower and a mid.
mm,
So if we're not training the whole core structure or we're improperly training it, and more importantly, if we're not focusing on that foundation of breathing,
mm,
then you're not really helping it. And
right.
so
And
you're
then you're not eating enough.
you're
Yeah.
not eating enough. So now I'm not building muscle. I'm not recovering. My body is in this depleted state. And then I'm overtaxing it with these exercises that are not actually focused on those muscles. And then I'm wondering, why isn't this getting better? So I keep doing more, right? Because we learn more is better. And
Mhm.
so it's just this vicious cycle that they keep going on.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and for perimenopausal women, very similar.
yeah. Yeah.
I put my body through the ringer, yo-yo dieted, overtrained,
Right.
overexercised. I now am my body is shifting and changing. I'm seeing the changes in my stomach, so I'm going to do more excessive exercise. I'm going to try to eat less and look leaner.
Mhm.
But that just doesn't helping. It's causing more stress on the body than anything else, which is putting them in a hormonally unwell place.
Right.
Metabolism's all screwed up. Their muscle is waning, and they're just putting themselves they're digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
We have to realize that after 40, our visceral fat can go up anywhere from 5 to 8%. That's natural, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing you can do about it. But
Right.
it's different than so you'll talk from your perspective, I'm talking from mine. It's different than when I was just trying to get leaner in my 20s and
Mhm.
30s. It definitely has to do kind of with a whole health approach
Yeah.
rather than just calories in versus calories out. So,
Well, and one thing I want to talk about too, or just mention is so we're talking about a flatter tummy, but a flatter tummy means something different to everybody. So,
right.
like a flatter tummy to you may mean like you can see my eight packs. A flatter tummy to me, maybe I don't have like the mom pooch that's underneath my belly button. A flatter
Mhm,
tummy to someone else may be just that I've had weight loss in my stomach area in general. I don't like, I
mhm.
just want some of it gone. And
Yeah.
so when listeners are listening to this episode, I want them to apply what they think the flatter tummy is, but with a caveat that we'll get into as well.
Yeah. Well, and for me, I do focus on waist to hip ratio with a lot of
Mhm.
clients just because, a waist to hip ratio above zero point 0.8 you're going to have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease.
Right.
And so for some women, it's just having a healthy waist to hip ratio, which I will link how to calculate that in the show notes below.
Okay.
Got to put it on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some myths. People oftentimes, I mean, I remember back in the day doing like hundreds of crunches, like hundreds of them in one sitting. And even at dance, like I remember us having like 10-minute abs, and it was horrible. And form was terrible for everyone. It wasn't until obviously I got super lean that I was like, oh, well, I've always had like a relatively lean stomach just from dance, but it wasn't until I figured out what we're going to teach you guys that I actually saw definition in my core. But people think they can just do 100 sit-ups and spot reduce the fat on their belly, which is hilarious.
Well, like we can do 100 sit-ups and target muscle building, but the 100 sit-ups is not how you're going to target that either way.
Wait, think about it. You're not going to do 100 squats.
Oh my God, no.
Ugh. Right? Like the resting that needs to happen to bring your energy levels down, to bring that heart rate down, to get your nervous system back to a place where it's ready to face that stress again.
Right.
Is how we build muscle. And your abs are muscle. They're just like every other muscle in your body.
Right.
Okay. The other thing though, too, is people like, oh, I want to lose some belly fat. So I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to wear the waist trainer.
Please see our episode about detox, schmetox, and equipment you don't need.
Yeah. Like that physiologically, you guys I want you to think about if this was true, then everyone should be doing it. The 74% of Americans who are overweight would wear a waist trainer if they could lose
tea,
belly fat or fat in general.
Yeah.
Right? It's not true. So let's talk about what are some things why we as women struggle with our waistlines. One of the main culprits that anyone here can connect with is stress.
Yes.
Stress. And what we're going to talk about, you'll see, guys, it kind of all meshes together. But stress will increase your insulin levels, right? And insulin's job is to, allow, when your blood sugar comes up, insulin comes out and it shuttles itself into cells. But if we're constantly stressed, we constantly have this high blood sugar, we're constantly producing insulin. And I think of like insulin's like at a club and they're trying to get in. And the guy at bouncer's like, no, there's too many people in here. You can't come in. So then insulin's like, okay, I'm going to go get my friend. So then it comes back. It's like, can we get in the club yet? And he's like, no, it's full. You can't come in. The body becomes resistant. Like the guy at the door is like, no, you can't come in. So that it becomes resistant to insulin. And we see a slew of issues, including abdominal weight when this occurs. Because of that, stress will slow your metabolism, which obviously makes it harder to burn fat, especially around your belly, right? Stress will also cause you to think about being in a bad mood, right? For people who struggle with their relationship with their mood and their emotions, they're always stressed out. They'll do things like binge eat, emotionally, or excessively exercise, which we'll talk about, doesn't help the fact. And so we're just seeing, these high levels of cortisol causing issues with insulin resistance and thus belly fat. So stress has a great impact, not only on your body composition, but on your metabolism too. The lower your metabolism, the harder it is to burn that fat.
So then even you mentioned it a little bit, when we see this, we tend to go into overtraining mode, right? Because then we got to make up for it. So overtraining, not eating enough. And so then we're going to increase that stress on the body, right? Because we're not taking care of ourselves or active recovery. We're not eating enough to replenish our muscles. And then we don't manage stress. And when we're talking about stress, that could be physical stress, like exercise. It could be nutritional stress, like we're not eating enough. It could be work stress, relationship stress, lack of sleep stress. And so thinking of all of the buckets that Christina refers to. And so then the body freaks out and says, nope, got to hold on to this. right?
Yeah.
Because it wants to feel safe. And how does it feel safe? By making sure there's enough energy for you to just function day to day.
Yeah. I always like to say the body's number one goal is to make sure it has enough energy to keep the brain alive.
Mhm.
So it will store that energy. The body, when we are in a fight or flight state, well, I should say when we're in a fawn or numb state, our body holds on to energy. So if you're chronically stressed, that means I can't get out. When I
Yeah.
can't get out, I'm stuck here. So think about like hibernating. They're not leaving, so they store all of that food
Mhm.
for the winter. That's what your body does in a chronically stressed state because it's in freeze, right? It's in that numbing place. Whereas fight or flight, we need that energy to run or fight, but we're not in fight or flight. We are in freeze. And when we're in freeze, we hold on to all of that. And whether it's, again, we started off talking about stress, but then the stress of not eating, the stress of overtraining on top of being emotionally out of whack or dysregulated, our bodies go into survival mode.
Yeah.
And I want to say for me, as someone over 40, obviously I talked about my dad. Boom, that's a stress. I run a business. Boom, that's a stress. I have a relationship that I need to make sure that I am tending to. That's a stress. Changing body, that's a stress. So those are just, okay, those are your circumstantial. Those are things that happen. But then also, estrogen is a stress relieving hormone and progesterone. Progesterone actually helps us get into that kind of rest and digest calming place. And so as I'm already going through these circumstantial stresses, then also my body's ability to fight that stress is lower. Then I'm not replenishing my body with energy that I need to fight that stress, right? And then not only am I not replenishing, I'm pulling from this empty cup and working out like crazy. I think about the mom who just had her first baby, right? So that's me where I'm at. I want you to tell people about the mom who just had a baby, hormones changing, and all of that.
Yeah. So that's a heightened stress state because one, lack of sleep. So whether you have support or not, you're waking up every 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. So now I've got inconsistent sleep. And yeah, you can sleep throughout the day where you get a cumulative of 8, but no. Especially if you have like another child, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the newborn. So we're getting inconsistent sleep. My hormones have been depleted because I just went through labor and I had the biggest shift in my hormones that any woman ever experiences in their life. Then I'm not eating because, again, we are trying to lose weight, or I don't even have the energy to think about how I'm going to eat or strategies to eat, because that's a big thing too. Like when you're breastfeeding or pumping or however you're keeping up with the child, is sometimes your need for nutrition gets put on the back burner because there's so much, I would say, flight fright happening. Your cortisol's increased because you're just trying to keep something alive. So you're not taking care of yourself. Right.
Yeah. I interrupt this episode to bring to you our 6-week winter wellness challenge. This challenge is for new clients only and will be a 6-week challenge where we're teaching you how to keep up with your wellness through the stress of the holidays. This 6-week challenge will include 4 different workout programs or movement programs. These programs will be based on the percentage of energy that you have available because let's face it, the holidays are hard. So we have a 25% movement day, a 50% movement day, 75% movement day, and 100% movement day. And each day is going to have a different type of movement based on what you can give to yourself. Also, on top of this, we're going to add a variety of health habits that are going to allow you to have the best experience when it comes to the holidays while making sure you're prioritizing yourself. This is a 6-week program. The program will start November 24th. Please check out the show notes for the link below. Now, back to the show.
Then you want to go back to the gym if you identify as like a Fitbit and you want to get after it. And so there's nothing there. And so it just creates that repetitive cycle of we are not going to get the belly that we are hoping for when we're doing this.
Because all we're doing is stressing, insulin resistant, cortisol levels through the roof.
And then probably not taking their prenatal too, because now that's a big thing too, is postpartum, you still want to be taking your prenatals or like your vitamins and whatnot that you were taking beforehand, because it's so much energy depletion. But you figure, I'm done with the pregnancy, I'll stop. And it's like, well, no, please don't.
Right. Well, and everything we're talking about, the stress levels, the not eating, the not sleeping, all the things that we as women go through
Mhm.
ultimately ends up in us being under muscled.
Yeah.
And being under muscled, having a loss of muscle naturally happen. I don't want to say the word naturally though. Research shows 4 to 6 pounds per decade after the age of 30. However, I don't believe it's natural. I think that it is preventable 100%, but everything we're talking about, I'm not getting sleep, I have a new baby, have to take care of a parent, whatever that is, we do tend to put ourselves on the back burner,
Mhm.
right? And so, or we are still doing the, 1 hour hit classes and, cycle classes and all this shit, thinking like, oh, look at all these calories I burned. Calorie burn and having muscle are not the same thing
Correct.
at all, but we tend to move less
Mhm.
over that time and we're losing muscle. Muscle is where we can store excess glucose and excess calories, meaning, so you think muscle storage. So come back to my bouncer at the door. Like, muscle is like a new club down the street. It's like, come on in. Like, we're new. Come in. Like,
Yeah.
I have a higher capacity for
Consider it
people
the
to come in my club.
Roxbury. Like
Yes.
like, that's a great analogy. So if you've seen A Night at the Roxbury with Doug and
Mhm.
Steve Butabi, they try and get into the clubs and they can't. But then
That's a good
finally
one.
they get to open up their own club and they go and the glucose, which is Doug and Steve Butabi, get utilized in a very great way.
Oh my
I
gosh.
love that
Yes.
movie.
Well, and if we close down the club, that's one less place for people to go. So your muscle
Yep.
is where we can store that excess glucose. That's why you'll see people who are leaner have more muscle on their body, I should
Mhm.
say. They can go out, they can have a whole week in Puerto Rico or, Costa Rica, wherever you went, and they're fine. And they're fine. They come back, they look exactly the same. But someone else who's under muscled, they hold on to that weight
Yeah.
and their body just can't handle it.
Yeah.
Right. And so the more muscle we have, the more areas we have to store glucose. The other thing, too, is the more muscle we have, as we talked about, tell the people about metabolism and muscle.
That's it. So the more muscle we have, the higher metabolism is. And so
Mhm.
this means you can eat more without gaining weight. But
And it can
also,
be like a furnace to burn
uh
calories or
yes.
burn fat, I should
And
say.
so that's the thing here that we're talking about when we're identifying. Okay, so let me go back and paint the picture for you. We're identifying this area that we don't like. We want to work on our belly. I don't like my midsection. Therefore, I'm going to overtrain it or have no consistent training plan for it. And then I'm going to undereat. Well, your body is going to adapt to that. It's going to say, okay, she's not doing XYZ to help me, just sustain this and then some, because it takes and then some nutrition to build muscle. It's not like if I'm under eating, I'll still build muscle. And so your body's going to say, okay, then we need to slow down our energy that we have available to expend.
Mhm.
So now, if I'm doing those things of overtraining, undereating, stress buckets, not taking care of myself, what I can eat is actually lower.
Mhm.
And then that's where you start to hear the clients go, I feel like it just stays with me. Or like I go on vacation and like for weeks afterwards, my body's like wrecked.
Or they are eating like 1,400 calories and they
Yeah.
literally are not seeing change in their body
Yes. And
because
so they're
their
stuck.
maintenance has become so low. Yeah.
Right. So this is when we say, okay, the more muscle we can build, the I like to equate it like the more flexibility you have with your lifestyle. So for
Mhm.
example, you're using the term like going out or going on vacation or maybe taking a few weeks off because you need to,
Mhm.
just because shit's hitting the fan with my family.
Yeah.
So whenever we can say, okay, it works the opposite way. So not only does it slow down to benefit you, it's going to speed up to benefit you when we have more
Mhm.
muscle as well.
Absolutely. And everything you're talking about is that metabolic adaptation,
Uh-huh.
right? Our bodies are so brilliant, they will adapt to how we treat them. They're so brilliant that they move fat around to protect vital organs. Like,
Right.
I want to like
That's
for
so good.
women to hear that. Like, there is a part of the fat on your body that is, let me tell you guys, actually, I think this is easier to understand. Men's, essential body fat can get as low as like 3 to 5%. Okay. Women's essential body fat is 10 to 12% body fat. Essential meaning you need this shit or you will die.
Yeah. That's not even considering like, do you have amenorrhea at that point or like
Right.
your hormones?
Right. I mean, 10 to 12 is
Very
it's not
lean.
healthy. I have a girlfriend who is a competitor who literally almost died from
Ooh.
how lean she was. And so I want you to hear that. Men can be at 3 to 5%. Women have to stay above 10 to 12%.
Mhm.
And there's a reason for that. Your body is brilliant. You reproduce. You have, different hormones. You're not small men walking around. You're a woman. And there's a reason to have that fat around your hips, thighs, belly, butt.
Right.
So I just want to reiterate like the brilliance of your body. Like you said, it will work for you or it will work against you, but it's never working against you, actually. It's just trying to keep you alive.
Right.
And so let's talk about how to begin to change this. Now, you guys are probably thinking like, this is not what I thought this podcast was going to be about, that I need to manage my stress and to have a flatter belly. Yes. We first and foremost want to get realistic though, because that gal, oh my God, you guys, I don't know who she is, but this girl who is super lean, has a 6-pack. I guess someone had commented on her page about not being lean enough, some troll. And this girl spiraled and she got in her head and was talking about, oh yeah, like how much leaner do you need me to be? And this, and that. And she's young. I want to be like, girl.
Here's my
You
card.
got it. Huh?
Here's my card.
Yeah. And no, that, yes. But it was just so sad. Like she was you could tell like her worth was in her abs.
Yeah.
So why I brought that up is you're probably not going to look like her. She's very disordered.
Yeah. So the first of our 5 strategies for a flatter tummy is getting realistic.
Yes.
Like you just said, you're probably not going to look like her. She's younger. Like she's already got that side of benefit. She probably has more time than what we all do.
She probably doesn't have children.
Yeah, probably doesn't have children. But not only that, like you need to get realistic with it in the fact of what are you actually looking for? So for example, if you're trying to focus, maybe you are, we'll say 30 pounds overweight or would like to lose 30 pounds, either way. When you lose that 30 pounds, that does not mean you have a 6-pack. But if you're expecting to lose 30 pounds and then have the 6-pack, we've got to really change those expectations on what that means and what training looks like. And not even that, we need to define what is our timeline of this. Like if I do 100 crunches for 21-day challenge that I see on YouTube, that's not going to happen in 21 days. Like you've got to think, again, abs are a muscle, as we've talked about. Think of like progressing your squat. When did you start at a 100-pound back squat and then within 21 days you went to a 200-pound back squat? Probably not. It probably took time. And it probably took a well-phased program. So getting realistic with that of like, do I have the time? Do I have the investment? If I am going to the gym and making time, are abs my sole focus? Because if they are, that's fine. But realize if I only have 20 minutes and abs are my sole focus, it's taking away from something else. And so you need to program that appropriately. Your outcome is going to vary too. So Christina's, we could be doing the same program, same nutrition, everything, but her body may adapt differently than mine. So going back to the girl that you used, for example, it may just be a body thing and you're doing the exact recommendation that someone is telling you to do.
Right. No, I 100% agree. And a lot of people though will look at her and be like, well, what do you do? And not realizing she was it her? Or it might've been someone else who was like, how I keep a flat tummy and what I eat in a day. And I was just thinking, wow, people are watching this and be like, oh, I'll eat this too. And they have no idea how much movement this person is doing, how disordered their training might be. But they just want that look, right? And they'll do anything to get that look. Your body, especially postpartum, like or if you've lost a lot of weight, is going to look differently. And we need to be okay with that. Some clients have been like, I'm lean, but I still have loose skin because they've lost a lot of weight.
Right.
And that for some people will have to be surgically removed if they want to have that look. Hopefully they've worked with us and, they are okay with where they're at. But we have to just realize like your frame, your body is going to be what it is going to be. And for some people, their tummies are the first place they lose weight, not for a lot, but for most people, it's the last.
Mhm.
So that's that. Get realistic. The other thing is we talked about is stop doing fucking crunches.
So number
There's
2.
so many better. Yeah. Number 2.
Yeah.
There's so many better core exercises.
Agree.
I just had this conversation with a client of, she wanted to do, she likes Russian twists. I put in planks and she's like, I don't want to do planks. But also there was a mistake I made on my end. I only put one plank in for 30 seconds instead of whatever I was. It was just an honest mistake. And she's like, what is this? But then I got into the conversation about like anti-flexion, anti-rotation, different types of core workouts that are so much better than your crunches, as people do, your Palloff press, your bird dogs, your dead bugs, your planks, right? Carries are huge. Those are all great if we're targeting. But at the end of the day, if you are doing a well-phased strength training program that has compound movements, think about what it takes to deadlift or squat 200 pounds. You better have a fucking strong core. And we're talking core. We're not just talking in the front. We're talking all the way around, right? You better have a strong core, and strength training in those compound movements are going to activate the core, but then also other parts of your body. So now we have this balanced body, right? Rather than the gal you said, if you're solely just focusing on abs, I imagine in my head, someone who's kind of like squishy everywhere, but their stomach.
Yeah. That's got like this blockhouse.
Yeah. They're just like walking around their stomach, but everything else is like weak,
Yeah. Well, and going back to like the different movements that you're giving recommendations on is one thing that I see with clients a lot is they actually are not feeling it there. They're just going through the motion. So for example, I had a client, that was working with me in person, and her background was in CrossFit. And I was like having her do Russian twist actually, but like a very modified version. She's like, I don't feel it in my core. And I was like, that's interesting, because when you're thinking of exercises, there's a progression levels to them. And if you don't feel it at the most basic progression, then we don't need to advance to the most advanced progression. Right. So she's like, the only way I feel it in my core is doing like twist with the ball slam against the wall. I forget what that's called, but basically taking like a 16-pound med ball, throwing against the wall as she's twisting. And so that would be, I guess, a progression of the Russian twist. And so I was like, well, that's a lot of like explosive movement that your other parts of your body are probably compensating for.
Right.
So you're feeling it because of the amount of force that you need. Whereas we should be able to feel it by even just doing a simple Russian twist in a very modified version. And so it was going back to working on that. And this is when I see like a lot with the hanging leg raises is a big one that I see this is that you're just throwing your legs up and using your hip flexors. Whereas if you really thought about it, engaging those lower abs is a lot more challenging. And if you can't do that, that's okay. But we need to regress. Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to regress because of whether it's ego or they think they should be able to do it. But I promise you, you will get the structure and like the strength and the muscle building that you're looking for by just doing it that way. Like
even just laying on the ground and kind of vacuuming in. Like you don't even need to move.
No,
you need to learn how to activate your core in the right way. No, I agree. So building muscle in your abdomen, but also all over your body. So the reason why we want to build a lot of muscle all over our body is, as we talked about, is the higher muscle mass we have, lean body mass we have, our metabolism will rise, making it easier for us to burn body fat. And then if we are targeting the core, we want to do a variety of different ab exercises. And just like your squat, right? 8 to 12, a minute 30 rest in between, let the body kind of relax. Just people think that burn feeling is working their abs. No, your abs are now just fatigued. at that point and not firing in the way that they should, as you're talking about.
Right.
We want to take that 8 to 12. We want to rest, come back to it, 3 sets, you're good to go. You don't need to do something excessive. So good. Next thing is, how we eat. For my peeps in the perimenopause world, we walk around with a shit ton of inflammation because estrogen is also an anti-inflammatory hormone. So not only do we have a reduction in an anti-inflammatory hormone, but the way that our body makes up for it is increasing more cortisol, which is also an anti-inflammatory hormone. So there's another reason why stress levels are higher in your body. And for us and for the gals that I work with, we focus on a Mediterranean diet in an effort to reduce inflammation and bloating, but also getting in those vitamins and minerals into the gut, into the body to help with balancing what's happening. It's not completely balanced, of course, but if you, as we'll talk about here at the end, if you pair that with a good exercise routine, like we talked about, a good meal plan that we talked about, or, following a specific type of diet, and then also HRT, you're going to have a better experience and a flatter tummy all around.
I think this also goes into when we're looking at foods, having whole foods is what you're talking about, decreasing inflammation because processed foods do cause inflammation, but also with eating enough. When we are focused on eating enough and building the muscle, then when we go into a cut, we've got a nicer number. And it creates, then we can really start to see that definition that you've been working for, if that's your goal. Or if weight loss in the belly is your goal, then at some point we need to go into a weight loss phase, but we need to make sure we're doing that at an appropriate level. So I think if you can focus on the whole foods, getting enough protein, getting enough fats, then focusing on the carbs, and then making sure I'm eating enough for X amount of time as I'm building my core section for an improved look, then the deficit becomes a lot more manageable and realistic.
Yeah. The other thing I notice with my friends is obviously we are I shouldn't say we, I am a recovering party girl. And and what I used to do and get all crazy and have the drinks and do all the things, which I don't do as much anymore. A lot of my friends are still doing it, and they're wondering why they have this like pooch in their bellies. And I'm thinking of one friend, she went to a naturopath who told her that she had issues with her gut, but she wasn't honest about how much she was drinking.
Okay, girl.
Yeah. And I was like, she goes, I don't think that's the problem. I'm like,
okay.
I looked at your blood work. Looks like it's a problem, alcohol consumption. Think of the beer belly, right? So we already have a natural increase of visceral fat. And then we're consuming calories from empty calories, right? There's no vitamins and minerals in alcohol.
Yeah.
So alcohol obviously can be tough on the belly, the stomach lining as well. So we're just like, overly, when we're drinking in excess, we are just putting ourselves in a position to see that midsection get wider and wider. So
I wouldn't even say excess.
moderate.
I would say if you're drinking in regulation, meaning like it's part of your daily habit and routine, then you have to make that choice of, if I want to do this, I'm going to understand the trade-off. But if my trade-off is that I don't have maybe this, it's not going to be the one lever that you pull that changes all of this for you. I promise that. But it certainly helps. Yeah. And it's an easy lever to pull. And again, I'm not a big drinker, and I don't judge anybody that wants to drink or have nightly wine or whatever. But if you're bitching to me about this is the easiest thing that we can pull. That would help. And not only that, calorie wise, so alcohol is probably anywhere from 80 calories to, upwards to 400, depending on the kind of drink you get. That's an easy way to replace that with something that's more nutrient dense, that's actually going to go towards your goal, as opposed to just enjoying or stress management. Yeah, it is. When I'm seeing calorie intake of, over 1,000 calories because of alcohol, you're basically it's just liquid, and your digestion, you're not having those whole foods. Your digestion is
you're hungry,
Shit.
right? Because you're
Yeah.
not eating anything.
Mhm.
And so now we're going to eat something and now we're a little bit tipsy. So then we're going to, eat in excess or eat
Mhm.
something that's, a little bit more indulgent on top of drinking, which is also
Mhm.
indulgent. And you can see how that will build over time. Now that's going to build around, body fat in general. But I do see, especially women my age, it tends to go to that like lower abdomen,
Mhm.
belly area. Instead of using alcohol, we need to figure out number 4, a proper stress management plan.
Mhm.
And that can look so many different ways: meditation, prayer, walking,
Mhm.
sunshine, playing with your animals, being with people you love,
Setting
um,
boundaries.
yes, 1000%.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries,
Mhm.
eating enough would be a way to manage stress.
Say
Um,
consistent sleep and wake times and bedtime
mhm,
routines, dimming the
mhm,
lights, not having shift workers, it gets a little more complicated, but in general, if we can
yeah.
make sure there is, no phones in the bedroom or we're not staring at screens, like it doesn't sound like a stress, but the body doesn't know that. The body just takes the information and does with it what it needs to in order to keep you alive.
And again, your body doesn't know if the stress is big or if it's small, if it's
Mhm.
real or if it's thought. So having an inward practice of managing your thoughts and being aware of them, and then an outward I wouldn't say outward, but a physical practice to calm down your nervous system and your body, because that rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system, we are kind of just like cruising when we're in
Yeah.
that system. We're not shooting and pumping a bunch of blood sugar in so we can fight or flight, nor are we storing because we can't get out, which is freeze. We're just allowing our bodies to use energy as it comes in and out,
Mhm.
plus recovery. And so finding an inward practice and a physical practice. And physical doesn't need to be exercise. It could be walking. It could be
Bath.
a bath. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Stretching. Dr. Chap talked about the like alternating nostril breathing,
Yeah.
uh, but then also managing the thinking is really important here. And
Yes.
so finding that stress management practice. And then for my ladies, and I want to say this with an asterisk, HRT is not meant to help with weight loss. Okay. And the research on HRT shows that it can reduce body fat, but it's about 3 pounds. About one step, like if you're looking at a BMI, you come down one notch on the BMI scale. And the reason why is we want you to check your hormones. We want to see if there's anything going on that, we are now going into perimenopause. Does that mean that what we're talking about before this changes? No, it doesn't. I would say follow the stuff that I've said for my perimenopause, for my postmenopausal women, follow the stuff that Coach Amanda says. And if you're neither of those, you can still follow what we're talking about, right? But the reason why it's not as big of a change is a lot of women think I'm on HRT, this weight should go away.
Mhm.
That's not how it's designed, right? Because if that was the case, you would have people who are obese on HRT,
Mhm. Well,
but
so
there are
that
no.
goes into strategy number 5 is check your
Mhm.
hormones.
Yeah.
And I think so even going back to like if your hormones are fine and that was the problem when you were in your 20s when your hormones were probably at optimal levels, right?
Hmm.
Because that's actually the biggest fertility period given, the development of humankind,
Hmm.
then this wouldn't be an issue then. But it probably was in one way or another.
Right.
So, yeah, like that's my biggest thing. Like, I am so happy that women's hormone replacement therapy is becoming more of a mainstream topic. But I think a lot of it is filled again, just like because I have like YouTube pulled up a like flat tummy guide, and it's a lot of bullshit and just like barf clickbaity thing of this
Of
will
some
solve
little
all. Yeah,
girl.
this will solve all of your problem. And it's like, no, no, no. The problem is multifaceted. And
Hmm.
there's each component that we have to look at. Now, sometimes HRT is one of the easier things to implement into our life, which is wonderful. But then what, like we're talking about these 4 other things of managing stress, nutrition, training program, and being realistic, that's what's going to bring it all together for what you're looking for.
Right. Absolutely. It is not an end all be all, but there's a lot of women out there that think, well, I'm on HRT, I should see this weight loss, but their lifestyle doesn't change.
Right.
And, going back to getting realistic, know that this is a process. I had this conversation with a client who is postmenopausal, who has done things like 75 hard and had a flat belly. But when I was sitting there and I was thinking about how much she was moving, she was eating like 1,680 calories, which for her is a good deficit. But when I take into account that she's working out 7 days a week, twice a day, the energy expenditure is so high that 1680 ends up being a ridiculous deficit on her body because of the amount of movement she's doing. She lost a lot of weight in like 5 weeks. And now coming into our program, that's not how we work. We're looking at longevity. We're looking at creating sustainable weight loss. And I had told her, I said, this process looks a lot different when we're doing it in the realistic way. And she gets it. Like, she's not like, pushing back. And we had the conversation, you want to go into a building phase, then you can go into, a cut if you need, and then maintain that and then repeat that over time. And then you'll get to the place where you're like, okay, like I can see the definition, I can see the muscle that I've created, but it takes time. If you don't have a strong core, just because you lose weight doesn't mean these abs are going to pop. Yes, you have abdominal muscles. We have muscle all over our body. But for a lot of us, we haven't fucking seen it in years, right? So you've got to take the time to build it, to shed the fat, repeat. And so just remember that. And over time, you'll get there. It'll be a lot easier to sustain. I know that for sure. It's much easier for me to sustain. I was thinking about it the other day. So many people follow people who are like, this is how I lost 20 pounds. This is how I lost blah, blah, blah pounds. And I'm like, why are you guys fucking following the people who need to lose weight? Why don't you follow the people who are just maintaining their weight?
Right.
Fucks. Anyway, anything else?
No.
Perfect. Well, if you are interested in any of the things that we talk about, because our program, the Mindset of Matter Coaching, is the one-stop shop to help you work inward and outward to become the best version of yourself and do that in a way that you can sustain for your life. Check out the Clarity Call link below. You'll set up a call with me. So you have a talk. We can have a little chatsies. Don't forget, guys, our 2 promos for the month of November. We have our Black Friday deals for the Mindset Method Movement, our group coaching program. You will receive 1 month free when you sign up for 3, or 3 months free when you sign up for a whole year. For our one-to-one coaching, we are offering $500 off our coaching 4-month package. I know, this is Black Friday deal, baby. Okay. We're also offering on Cyber Monday $89 for a full year of the Mindset of Movement app. So listen, I'm just giving this shit away.
I know.
At this point. Just kidding. Okay. It's still expensive. I'm not going to lie. But it's the best investment you will get put into yourself, because again, we're looking at everything we talked about today. How to feed yourself, how to manage stress, how to work out in a way that is sustainable, how to just live in a metabolically sound body. So check out that Clarity Call in the link below, or the links to all of those promos. Other than that, remember this, we talk about flat belly, but if you are sitting there picking yourself apart and you don't believe that you're good enough for this, then you're never going to see who you are in the mirror. So we want you to remember this one last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror. Get it? Goodbye.
Got it?
Bye.